So in this question 8, really the main thing that you should have really focused on is that it seems that the question is concerned that we don't have the sufficient proportion of the workforce. Why is it? China is pretty big, right? So if I were to get a sufficient proportion, I'd have to have a massive data set, okay? The problem with that statement is that it's confusing proportion with sample size, okay? Those two things do not have to be the same. Let me give you an extreme example. If I tell you that X is normally distributed 0, 1, how many possible values of X are there? How many possible values of X are there? Yeah. Infinitely many, right? So if my sample size is 1 million, I take 1 million observation of this X, what fraction of the population have I gotten? What fraction of the population have I gotten? 0. Wow. Sample size very large. The fraction of the population is 0. But I'm still very much able to make inference or come up with very good analysis about, for example, let's say that you didn't know what the sample mean was. If you took 1 million observation, chances are that the sample mean would be very close to 0, even though you have a 0% of the overall population. Okay? So this question is confusing sample size with proportion of a population. Okay? The ideal answer on this, which I actually saw over there, do you want to tell us a little bit what you did on the, so she did you did the right kind of answer over there. Her answer was constituted of 2 elements. Element number 1 is she gave a formula for the variance. Okay, she said the variance of interest, which is beta 1 hat, will equal to the sigma square divided by sum of xi minus x bar squared times 1 minus rj squared. So the first thing is to give that formula. The second thing is to realize that this thing here will become larger and larger as the sample size increases, irrespective of the fraction of the population that I have. Okay? Some other good answers included that it is possible that if we have a lot of variation in the axis, okay, even with a relatively small sample size, I'm still going to get a relatively big variance. Sorry, a relatively small variance. However, it's not getting to the core of the question, okay? The core of the question is to focus on this, the worry that, or the concern that the question poses. I'm not going to get a sufficient proportion of the Chinese workforce. You don't need to make good inference, okay? Dragos.
Let's assume that in a sample we have representative proportion
of course, but basically there is nothing in the question that indicates that you're not going to get a representative sample, okay? The concerns, of course, there's all sorts of problems that could come up with the data, but you have to focus on the question, okay? So Drago said, but well, we might have some problems if the sample is not representative. Of course we will have. But there's no indication in the question that you have those kind of problems. So you should assume you don't have those kind of problems. Actually, you should assume the only problem that you have is what's stated here. The only problem that you have is that you're worried that the sample will never be able to be a sufficient proportion of the Chinese population. Should you worry about that? No. You shouldn't. Okay? So a great answer here will include the formula and would write what your colleague did there, just illustrating that the variance of beta 1 hat is not so much dependent on the portion. Actually, there's nothing about the portion in there. Only to do with the sample size. Okay? So those are the things that we should really be focusing on. But as an examiner, I want to make sure that the student knows this formula. I can guarantee you that you'll be tested about this formula. You can rest assured that in the 2019 exam, you will have a question that will test your understanding of this variance. It might have to do with the changing of this. It might have to do with the changing of this. It might have to do with this. I don't know. But I know you'll be tested on this particular thing. So that would be sort of like my comments on question 8. And I'll come and take some more questions.